Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. It is, as Jay mentioned, I think a really unique and specifically to football, I think, because I hope that by adding this extra signing day, we don't take some of the luster off of this, because it really is a special day for not just these young men, but also for their families. One of the things I tell these kids when they call and say, "Coach, I'm signing with the Bobcats," I say, "Okay, awesome. Do me a favor. I want you to do two things. Number one, take a bow. It's something that not every young man gets an opportunity to experience. And number two, make sure that you thank your coaches, your family members, your mom, your dad, whoever drove you to those Pop Warner practices, your strength coach, whoever those people are that have been influential in your life and helping you achieve this." And so it's a unique deal, and it's cool that we get to celebrate them and having them join our Bobcat family today. I say that our players have a lot of people that help them get to that spot. The same is true for them, for those young men getting to this spot. There's a ton of people. This is it's a big operation. We have not just the coaches that are doing the recruiting. I mean, I look back there and I see some of our interns, and Patrick Carroll and Joe Dunning. Those guys do a lot of heavy lifting for us on the weekends when we have kids in on official visits, and they man the board, so to speak, while we're gone, and do a lot of the class checking and taking care of our student athletes that are in-house. I look back and I see Tice and his people in the business office. I mean, there's a lot of receipts flying back and forth, whether it be us booking hotel rooms or flights, or bringing these kids on campus and feeding them around campus. Jamie Rizzuto, she gives her time every single recruiting weekend. She comes and does a phenomenal job of selling the #1 thing that we have to offer here, which is a world-class education at Montana State. And so it's a big-time deal. Leon speaks to our recruits when they come in. We have partnerships throughout the community, and it's a phenomenal deal. And so it's a big undertaking. You know, I'd be remiss, obviously, if I didn't thank the folks at the Grand Tree for hosting this event. We really appreciate our partnership with you and all that you do to make us feel at home here. And it's kind of fun to see some people I haven't seen probably since the football season. So thanks for coming out today. One person, actually two people, that I want to really thank. Cole Moore, who's not here today. We've got 11 coaches that are going out all over kind of the state of Montana, and they'll be at our 11 different quarterback club locations. We're hosting a quarterback club events tonight in 3 states, Idaho, Washington, and all throughout the state of Montana. So it's going to be kind of a cool deal. Some of our coaches that are here, you know, I want to point out Garrett Becker and Brian Morris. They do an amazing job for us on the video production stuff that you just got a chance to see a little bit of. But really the way that recruiting has changed so much since I went through the process is it's not phone calls and handwritten letters. It's what the kids call edits, and pushing these blurbs out on social media. Many of you that follow our Twitter account, you can see the videos starting to roll out as the kids start committing, and that's what those guys are into. And that's a shift in a lot of the ways that we communicate with these young people is through social media. And Brian and Garrett are really a huge conduit for us to do that. And so thank you guys for all you do for us there. Our offensive line coach, where are you going tonight? Great Falls? Going up to Great Falls tonight, but Josh Tafalele. Josh does a great job for us. D-line coach right next to him, Byron Howell. Where are you going, Byron?
Going into enemy territory.
Okay, don't even say it. So you send me out. I was with you last time there. That was a good recruiting story.
Yeah.
Our offensive coordinator, Coach Armstrong, he's, where are you going tonight, Brian? He's going to Billings, but he's going to talk a little bit later. Kyle Reisinger, secondary coach, I think he's going to Lewistown tonight. We've got some of the other coaches, as Jay mentioned, all over the state that had to go a little bit further. And then we do have a new addition, our pass game coordinator, a guy that I've known for a long time. Get to know him, he's entertaining, he has great music selection. We have jazz hour now in the coaches' offices, but Bob Cole's coming to us from our relationship all the way back to Utah State in our early 90s, so thanks, Bob. The other person that I wanted to mention, and she's not here today, my wife's out of the country. She said the hell with this after I've done enough of recruiting stuff and I don't need to go to anymore. But one of the best things that we do in recruiting is we have the recruits and their families over on Friday evening, and they come to our house. And there's sometimes as many as 40 people when you put together our coaching staff and the hosts and the parents and the recruits. And sometimes more than that. And so Janet does a phenomenal job of making these people feel at home. I think it's a huge advantage for us in recruiting. It's a personal touch. And we talk a lot about joining our football family, and I think they get a great deal for that immediately. And it's not just Janet, but it's the other coaches' wives that go out of their way to do that. And so shout out to those folks. All right, let's talk about this class really quick. I want to focus on the young men, the 11 young men that we have here. We'll probably have another one surprise us by the end of the day and get some stuff out on that individual. But right now we'll talk about the way this thing came together. One of the things that we focused on in this class, and I've kind of called it, the future is now. That's kind of our mantra last year. It was a class of champions, and one of the things that we've really focused on in this group is guys that we feel like can have an impact. And we signed 4 mid-year guys that are all on campus right now that are fitting in great into our culture. And I think we've got some guys specifically at the skill positions on offense and defense. Maybe a little bit more of a focus on the line of scrimmage in our first 2 signing classes on the O-line and the D-line. But I think you'll see definite flavor of kind of adding some team speed, some dynamic players at the skill positions on both offense and defense. And we're excited about these kids. It was a fist fight down the stretch. The way things change, the first signing period was pretty clean, pretty kind of traditional, I'd say. Focused a lot on the Northwest and the Montana kids in particular. And then in this cycle, everybody was fighting over the same guys. I mean, it was what was out there. We lost 1 young man to an FBS program. We kept an FBS program from coming in on another young man and retained him. We were battling a lot, especially saw Eastern Washington a lot because we had a lot of guys that were in the state of Washington that we were recruiting. We saw the University of Idaho, who's now, we're seeing more of them in recruiting now that they are coming back into the Big Sky Conference. And so there was a lot of competitive recruiting going on, and it was kind of fun. What's life without a little bit of intrigue? I know Coach, I told Ty, I was like, you don't get this stressed out on game day. I mean, he was a mess for the last 2 days over a couple of guys that we were working on, and I was like, hey man, this is what it's all about, I mean, it's fun when things go down to the wire a little bit, there's a little bit of intrigue, and you don't want too much, but it was kind of fun. And the thing that I noticed, there was 2 things that we really focused on in terms of maybe how we're shifting our recruiting pitch when we go on the road. One is come win a championship at Montana State, not come help us build at Montana State. And I think that resonated with a lot of the young men that are there. They know that we've done a lot of the heavy lifting and that it's time for us to go and compete for a title. And I think that connected to a lot of these guys. And the other thing is we have a heck of a good product to sell here. And I think that the expectation, what's in these guys' minds when they get off a plane or they drive into Bozeman, the reality so far exceeds the expectations. That's always a bump for us. When they leave Bozeman, they go, wow, that place is pretty cool. But whether it's going downtown and hanging out, taking a drive up to Bridger Bowl, being around our campus and feeling the energy. There's a lot of cranes on our campus, and that's a good thing. And so I think they know that this is a good place to be right now. And when they compare it to some of the other options that they have, we usually compare very, very favorably. And so we're excited about the product that we have to sell. We're excited about the young men that we're going to talk about today. I'm going to turn it over to Coach Armstrong. He's going to show some video and have some comments on the offensive guys. I'll cover the defensive guys, and then I'll answer some questions at the end. So thanks for being here today, and go Cats.
Thank you very much for having us here today. First guy, everything starts up front. As Coach says all the time, the game is on the line. And Donnie Long from Norco, California, is the offensive line signee, that scholarship guy we brought in this year. First thing, Coach Tafalele did a heck of a job with recruiting Donnie. Donnie is an athlete. He's an inside guy, can play any of the inside 3 positions, guard or center. He's impressive. Coach Tafalele saw him play basketball. I saw him practice basketball. I didn't see him actually play a game, but the kid at 6'3", 280 pounds can drop step dunk. So he's a pretty dang explosive athlete. We can get to some film I think Garrett has here. See him here at left guard. The ability to pull and bend and get underneath man, pad under pad wins. And the thing about Donnie, he's a very blue-collar guy, which is what you love to see in offensive linemen. His dad is a construction worker, comes from a great family. Donnie visited a couple weeks ago, and we went to see him the next Monday. I think it was Coach and I flew out there. Coach picked me up at 5:30 in the morning to catch the first flight out. I get in the truck first thing in the morning, and Coach, it's not good morning, or how's it going? Or he's like, Donnie Long got offered by Arizona State last night. And I was like, oh, okay. We get to the airport, Coach Tafalele calls, says Donnie's committed. Coach goes, to who? And he said to us. And so we were like, oh, all right. So, but then we get to the school and the coach was not really sure what was going on. We get to meet with Donnie and his parents that night, and Donnie was all in. He loved, I mean, he had, like Coach said, the expectation of what Bozeman and Montana State was. But I think actually being here far exceeded his trip, exceeded anything that he had imagined. And so he is a fired up guy to be a Bobcat, and we're fired up to have him. The next guy, Ryan Barkley from Durango, Colorado. Ryan, Donnie is kind of our inside guy in this class. Ryan is a tackle body, a long, good-looking dude. I mean, he is, I would compare him to like a Lewis kid. You guys know Lewis, kind of a long, not as heavy as Lewis is, but he is a long, levered guy that looks the part. I can only imagine what he's going to look like in a calendar year, but super excited to add him. Him and his dad were here last weekend, and you know, he had some RMAC stuff and chose to come here, and so we're very excited to have Ryan. Okay, Sherrod from Heritage High School. Sherrod is a tailback. He could play some slot. He's an explosive guy. As an offensive coach, you know, the term speed kills, everybody's heard that, but I'm a big fan of being able to block something for 8 and be able to get 80, and Sherrod's a guy that can do that. He is explosive. He is a guy that can take it to the house. Probably, I would imagine, when he walks on campus would be, if not the fastest, in the top 2 fastest guys on our team. And anytime that a guy can run and have some ball skills, I really believe, you know, the skill positions, whether it's tailback or wideout, those are opportunities for guys to play early in their career. Sherrod was a guy that we actually brought up before the early signing period, and got him. So Blake Allred from Billings Senior, and I'm sure a lot of people know Blake here. Blake played linebacker in high school. We had Blake in camp this summer. Blake's a guy that, I mean, another blue-collar Montana kid. You can't get enough of those kind of guys. He's about 205 pounds now. He was here last weekend visiting. And will be a great addition along with R.J. Fitzgerald to the fullback position. A position that we really didn't use last year. We used tight ends as kind of fullbacks last year, and we still will continue to do that. But it's nice to have those fullbacks usually have a little bit of built-in pad leverage on guys, so it's nice to have guys that can get under pads. Trayton Pickering is an interesting story. Trayton's a Sunburst guy, played 6A man football. We had him at camp this summer, and again, if you watch this, you'll see his high school tape. It's a little bit hard to evaluate like what's going on, because the only thing you can evaluate in 6 and 8 man is open field tackling, because if you miss a tackle, it's a touchdown. But Trayton is a long levered kid. He's 6'4", he's 220 pounds. I would bet my life that he's never shaved in his life yet. I mean, he is going to be a big, big kid. He's got size 16, I believe, shoes. And, Coach Cole had just gotten to Bozeman, and we drove up to Sunburst, his first outing at Montana State. I told him we were going to Canada, and he was like, what? But we get to Sunburst, and we walk in, and we meet Trayton's grandpa, and I mean, you got to know Coach Cole a little bit, and I'll get to know him, but we walk in the house, and he shakes the grandpa's hand. I'm tipping stuff over here, and I mean, the grandpa is like, Bob's doing this number, looking him up and down, and he gives me the elbow and goes. So, suffices to say, Bob's a Trayton Pickering fan. But Trayton's a guy that he's going to be a developmental guy for sure, just because of the, you know, the small school he comes from. But he's a guy that is going to get big, and you can definitely get a taste of his athleticism even on film here. If I play it.
Only quick blips where he was dominating the Curry kid from Bolero.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I played him a couple weeks ago in basketball. Had 31, I think, on it.
45.
45. Played him again. Kobe DeRue, I think Kobe DeRue is like the sleeper in this class. Kobe is a guy that when we watched his film early, again, we talked about him and we're going to bring him up in the early signing period, just didn't have a chance to do it. We were keeping our fingers crossed that we were going to be able to hold on to him, because Kobe, number one, the thing about Kobe is he walks in and his personality is, he is outgoing now. He likes to talk and is, I mean, all wide receivers, I think. I'm dumping this stuff all over. Sorry. Full in a china closet. Very outgoing. A heck of an athlete at 6'2", and again, I think he probably weighs more than 185 pounds, but another explosive guy that, because he can run and has good ball skills, could possibly have a chance to help us early. He was a guy that we were very nervous about holding on to and hoping that we could sneak him in, and we were able to. But a heck of a kid, and like I said, very outgoing personality. Metcalf, to me, Mekhi in a year is going to be a guy that, I mean, at 6'4", 180 pounds, obviously he's got comes from great bloodlines. His father was a Pro Bowler, Eric Metcalf. It's so funny how genetics work, because, I mean, Eric is, I don't know, 5'10", maybe 5'11". His mom's not a big lady. But Mekhi is, I mean, you stack his mom and his dad on top of each other and you have Mekhi. But Mekhi is another guy that we're really excited about. You know, went to Idaho a couple weeks ago on a trip and decided that this was the place for him. But he's one of those guys, a little bit like Jabari that we have now, that you like to get out there when you get that one-on-one coverage. And hey, he's like 7'11", he's always open. He can throw the 50-50 ball up there, and it's probably a little bit better than 50-50. And again, in a year, he is going to be a huge wide receiver and a mismatch.
General comments, your screen is fine, by the way. Bill, I was worried about your screen. But the first time Bill ever came up to do an interview with me, he had a phone, and we were calling, I don't know, somebody in Helen or something. He's like, all right, I'm ready for you, Jeff. And he slides this phone across, and I cut my thumb on the screen. It was so shattered and bad that I had cut my thumb on there. So, Bill, I'm impressed that your screen is completely intact right now. So, sidelight there. A couple quick comments on these guys. So, starting with the O-line. The Barkley kid is a kid that you know, passed up some scholarship opportunities to come here, and I think will be a guy that's going to develop. I mean, he's a heck of a piece of clay. He's all of 6'4", 270 pounds. Ty did a really good job of kind of developing some relationships with him down in about a year ago in the spring, and continuing that going. And then Donnie Long, great job by Coach Tafalele on this kid. I mean, he very, very good football player. And Josh had some high aspirations. Every kid that we were kind of getting in the boat with, they were getting plucked off by FBS programs. And I was convinced that was going to happen again, and it went down exactly like Coach Armstrong said. I got up, checked my phone, offered by Arizona State. I'm like, well, come on, we're going to have a hard time beating the Pac-12 school here. And then by the time we got to the airport, we were good, and then it was kind of up in the air. We actually went to the cafeteria at Kaiser Permanente, where his mom works. She's a midwife there, and sat down and had some dinner. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, I want to be a Bobcat. I don't really like the hot. I like cold weather. And I was like, well, for a kid from Norco High School in Southern California, I think we've cracked the code here. All we got to do is make sure we have cold weather. I think we've probably got that one checked off. So it was a heck of a deal, and he's going to be a great player. I mean, it is impressive to watch a kid like that. You know, he's because of the way he's built, he's all kind of rear-ended legs. And he's running, you know, playing hoops and whatnot. He comes in, and you're kind of like, I don't know, he doesn't look like he's developed very good. And then, then you go watch him play basketball and dunk and move around, and you're like, this guy's a pretty good athlete. So we're excited about him. The DeRue kid, another thing that's kind of funny is I talk about this all the time, but the relationships that go on when you're recruiting. There was a young lady that was actually, she helped us in recruiting at Boise State. She was a gal through shot and disc for us at Boise State. Her older brother had played O-line for Coach Cole and myself at Utah State. And then she married one of our O-linemen at Boise State. And she is like the athletic academic coordinator at Bishop Amat High School. And she sends me an email out of the blue. I haven't heard from her forever. Carrie Woodruff's her name. And Coach Choate, you know, following you, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. I got a guy you're missing on. So you never know where your leads are going to come from. And she was right. I mean, I was like, all right, Carrie, whatever, you know. And I throw the tape on, and I'm like, hey, we probably need to check this kid out. And I'm very, very excited about his future. His mom is a heck of a lady. Great story on her. I mean, she is from Nigeria. Her husband, her ex-husband now, but she got her undergraduate degree in New York, moved all the way out, got a master's degree and a PhD in Southern California, raised these 3 phenomenal kids. One's in med school, the oldest boy's in med school. The daughter, who's the middle daughter, she was a top 10 finalist on American Idol, and then Kobe, who is all personality, is the youngest. And so it's a great family, kind of a fun story. It's one of the unique things about going through this process is you get to connect with these people and you really get to start to develop these relationships. And then we talked about Makai and kind of the bloodline deal. Awesome, really kind of interesting. Makai's dad is actually an assistant track coach at the University of Washington. So Eric Metcalf, who was like a 5-time Pro Bowler, that's what he does for a living, is he's an assistant track coach at the University of Washington. So he keeps going, I've never been in the football offices. I'm like, you won't want to go coach track if you go up there and check out the Taj Mahal they got. But it's really enjoyed getting to know him. The Trayton Pickering from Sunburst, DJ Robertson, nobody will beat him in recruiting in Montana. I'm telling you right now, that guy will go to all the lengths that he needs to go to. And this was a guy that people over the hill, they definitely wanted. I mean, that was probably the first time that we really ran into the new staff on the road. And like I said, there was a lot of guys fighting over the same kind of guys out there. And so it was a really good job by him, developing a relationship with this kid. Goes all the way back to, I think, was it Coach Miller, who's, you might have seen a tweet last year with his shoe was covered in mud because he got stuck on some road outside of Sunburst. And so, you know, we paid the price to get that kid. And then talked about Sherrod White. I mean, he's a guy from Heritage High School that he can fly. And excited about his future and what he can potentially do for us. So getting on to some of the defensive signings. So Sear Dinas. Sear is a guy that came to camp. I want to say that 12 of our 27 guys that we have right now, might have been 13, came to our camp. And so, you know, when we push this out there, a lot of times these kids are like, well, you know, everybody else is trying to get you to come to camp too. But there's a pretty good correlation. It gives us an opportunity to meet with these kids, you know, work with them hands-on. They get to know us, we get to know them. Plus, you know, Bozeman in June is a little bit better than Bozeman in February. And so we like for them to come up here and see that there's not always snow on the ground. So Sears, Coach Houghton did an unbelievable job recruiting this guy. This was kind of a guy that we had to keep warm. A lot of times you kind of go out and you find these guys, it's like, hey, we're offering these guys a full and we're rolling on them. And then there's a lot of guys sometimes that you just got to continue a relationship with. And every time we'd be in a staff room, we'd be like, what about an interior D lineman? He'd be like, hey, I got Sear on the hook, man, he's ready to go. And so Byron did a really good job with him. I think this kid, first of all, I mean, the guy looks like he belongs in the D-line room. I mean, he came up here as a wrestler. Had a big old scar on one side of his nose. I mean, he looked like he was straight out of, you know, casting for a Western or something. It was awesome. So I was like, this guy's going to fit Montana. He was wearing Carhartts. He was ready to go. And I like to say the level that he plays at Connell, probably about like Class B in Montana. If this kid was a Montana kid, both the school over the hill and us would have been fighting for him. I think that's the type of kid he is. And ended up at the end, it was us in Eastern Washington. They're in their own backyard. We were able to win that battle, and I think a lot of it had to do with the relationship that Coach Houghton formed with this young man. I think he's got a high ceiling, plays with a big motor. Love the fact that he's a wrestler. He's a very competitive kid, and you know, he's a farm kid, knows how to work. I think he'll love and really embrace kind of our culture here at Montana State. So you can see he moves well for a big guy. I think he's a guy that can plug in and be a guy at 4I-4s down the road that can go. Next guy, James Williams. So James was in, then James was out, then James was in, you know. So we stuck with James, James stuck with us. We got the piece of paper this morning, and he's a pretty good player. 2 years ago, this guy was the MVP of the 5A state championship game for defense, okay? You look at some of his accolades, it's impressive. So he's from a winning program. Aledo High School is one of the top programs in the Fort Worth area. They've won, I think, 7 state championships in the last 11 years down there. They played for one this year, lost in the state championship game. But he was a guy that, he's trouble. I know Coach Topolele mentions it all the time. He's like, I'm not going to want to have anything to do with this guy. He's not tall, okay? So don't get, think Matt Brownlow, okay? Before he got on the diet, all right? That's what you got to think, okay? But he's got twitch now, and he's going to create problems for offensive lines for sure. He's explosive. His thighs are as big around as my waist, and his biceps are as big around as my thighs. I mean, that's what this guy looks like. High motor kid, and like I said, from a winning program, we're excited about his future. Malik Putney comes to us from Eastside Catholic High Schools, originally from Tacoma, Washington. Tough kid, man. This guy, I call him my alpha. This guy's going to be a guy that I know is going to provide leadership for us. He's a tough guy. He's a winner. I think he lost a total of 3 high school games his entire career. Was a 4-year starter at a school that basically just turns out college football players. Probably a guy that if you'd asked us a year ago, could we sign this guy, we probably still would have said no. He would have been above our pay grade. Just things work out sometimes. I think that he really connected with Coach Orfeh and Coach Reisinger on his visit, and this guy's a dude now. He's gonna grab guys and say, this is how we do it. And so really excited about what he can do. Probably for me, the thing that I like about this guy when I evaluate him, number one, he's got great instincts, but I think part of that is his ability to see what he sees so much of the field. You can see him here, just his ability to just kind of anticipate. He does a great job of not overplaying the quarterback's eyes, but has a good feel for what's going on around him. He returned a couple of, I think, 2 or 3 punts for touchdowns. He's good with the ball in his hand. They used him as a tailback towards the end of the year, so he's got a lot of versatility, and he's a physical kid. And so excited about him. Greg Filer III, nicknamed Munchie, because I asked him, he said because he was chubby when he was a kid, and that's what his mom called him. But he's fast. He's 6 foot corner. Another guy like I Coach Orfeh and I were having a conversation. I'm like, we keep watching the film. I'm like, how is this? Can we get this guy? And I think again it comes down to relationships. I think Mark did a phenomenal job developing a relationship with him. We had a kind of a connection to him because his older brother John Ross played football for us at the University of Washington, and we're excited to have this guy. I think he's a guy that's going to come in and have the ability to have an immediate impact. You watch him right here. He plays a little press bail, reads the screen, and then makes the play. This is the thing that's so impressive me. I think he had 5 interceptions. I think 3 of them were returned for touchdowns. And so it's not just the fact that he has the ability to make the play, but he's got the ability to make the play and then have a huge impact. And you can see, I mean, he's long, he can play press, he can bail, he can play off man, he's got recovery speed, and we kind of have to have guys like that to match up against a lot of these longer, rangier receivers that we have out now. And so that's kind of the group that we have right now, and hopefully we'll have another guy later on here today. The next thing up on our agenda is kind of spring practice, and so one of the things that we're doing right now is we're gonna really bump spring practice up pretty significantly. We're gonna start spring practice on Saturday, March 3rd. We're gonna have 2 practices later in the week, and then we're gonna go on spring break. And then we're gonna come back, and we're gonna punch these things out. We're gonna have our spring game on spring in quotation marks game on April 7th, and let these guys have about 3 weeks to get back into training and focus on their academics and finish the semester the right way. And so it's going to be fast and be done, and then we'll rock and roll. Questions?
With Trayton, he was committed to Montana Tech. What was the process of really getting him to the Bobcats?
Well, I think that's something that happens sometimes. A lot of times, for example, Montana, I think that was a symptom of the early signing period, to be quite honest with you. Montana Tech and the NAIA schools in the state, we don't subscribe to the same letter of intent. There's nothing binding that goes on between an NAIA school that would affect an NCAA school. Okay, so first and foremost, that's the deal. But I think Montana Tech was trying to capitalize on that early signing period too and get some guys in the boat. And we needed a little bit more time to kind of evaluate some of the guys in this class, and Trayton was one of them. And so once we kind of got through, we're like, let's go get that guy. And he'd already been on our campus a number of times. We've been recruiting him throughout the process, so it wasn't like we just showed up on his doorstep in December. We've been around him for a while. And once we got him on an official visit and got around him a little bit, we were ready to roll.
Can you talk about some of the effects of losing Michael Petrie as your recruiting coordinator and how this class finished out with Matt Miller as that spot?
Yeah, I think, obviously it's not ideal when you lose somebody, but I think Matt would be the first one to say the guy that was our ace in the hole was Cole Moore, because Cole had worked so closely with really all of our guys. He handled most of our stuff. He was the guy that was doing a lot of the logistical stuff even when Michael was traveling. And so we didn't really miss a beat. And I think that he was, if there was an MVP of this signing class for us, it was Cole Moore. And we'll talk a little bit more about him later.
How does the class signing today compare to the one in December? Do you know?
Well, it's smaller in numbers. You know, the question was, how does this group of signees compare to the ones that we took in December? And I think it's going to be a moving target. I think you can look at it this year and say, okay, probably like most of the time, it'd be nice for us to take care of the Montana kids first. And you saw maybe a little bit more Montana flavor in the first signing period. And then here we focused more on some out-of-state kids. We just had the one Montana signee, and then Blake joining us from Billings Senior. And so those are kind of maybe the main difference that you would see, is that there was a little bit more of a focus on Montana in the first class.
Do you think with Blake, I know you said fullback, but could he go on the other side of the ball and you could utilize him at linebacker as well?
Yeah, I think he's a guy that could play on ball. I mean, I'm a big guy on position versatility, but here's the thing. R.J. Fitzgerald, I think, is going to be a really good fullback, and we felt like Blake was the guy that was similar in terms of his ability to come in and impact. Remember, R.J. played a lot for us as a true freshman on special teams, and you know, he's a guy that I think you'll see more in our offense. And we felt like that we only had one body type like that. We saw Blake as a guy that could be a kind of a guy that could back up in that position and maybe compete to be that guy. And so you'll see that we fixed the linebacker position pretty good by moving the guys around in our program. And we didn't take a lot of linebackers because we feel pretty good about our linebackers. And when you come around in the spring, if you can get up that early, you'll see we got those guys dialed in pretty good.
Do you have a sense, Jeff, of how many of these guys are going to be able to jump right in versus here's some guys that are going to spend some time working with?
Yeah, I mean, I think you never really know until they get here. And one of the things that we always try to do is talk to these guys in the home about, that's one question that all parents will have. What about a red shirt? How does that work? And I said, the red shirt's completely up to you. At the end of the day, you better come in here with the idea you're preparing to come and be a starter at Montana State. If they take the attitude starting today that, well, I'm just going to go there in red shirt, well, they've wasted a year, and I want them to come in and compete. But we have to make those determinations usually by 2 weeks into practice, and that's kind of our drop dead day. We have a kind of sit down with each one of the position coaches where they make it clear as to what their role is going to be moving forward. If you were to say a number, I would say in our first class we played 11 true freshmen, and in this last class we played 13 true freshmen. I would anticipate that number to be smaller in this class. Because I think we've got more maturity and more depth on our roster. And so I don't know if that directly answers your question, but maybe it gives you somewhat of an idea.
Talk about the importance of getting back in the Seattle area and some of those Pacific Northwest connections.
Yeah, I think that's big time for us. I mean, that was, from the day that I got here, I was like, that's an area we're missing on. You know, having spent 2 years over there recruiting, I think there's a lot of talent. I think there's some very good football, and there's a lot of population. And there's direct flights, and there's 30% of the engineers at the Ren plant are Montana State grads, and there's all these reasons why we need to be engaged more in Seattle. And we've got a good alumni base. I think we've got a good brand over there. And we had kind of waved the white flag a little bit to Eastern in particular. And I think we have a heck of a product. And I don't think we're really recruiting the same kids they are. I think that when we're, you know, I mean, because we're different than they are. That doesn't mean we're not going to run into them from time to time, but I think that you know, when I go knock on somebody's door, I believe in what I'm selling. I think this is a heck of a place. I think we've got a great degree to sell. I believe in the young men that are going to coach these guys down the road, and I believe in our locker room. I think we're going to win big. And so you combine that, and then they get on that plane and they come here and they go, it's an hour 20 minutes from Seattle over here. Well, that's not bad. They walk into that airport, and they walk downtown, and they walk on our campus. It's a different feel. And I think we should be over there being aggressive in recruiting. That's why you see that emphasis on that state right now.
You had mentioned more skilled position players in this class. I guess how does that kind of affect the complexion of the team? How important is that for the team overall to add that?
Just asking about how we balance things out with more skilled guys in this class, and how that might affect the team. And I just think every year is different. Some of it is a symptom of need. That's the first thing that you've got to look at, is what do you need on your roster to take the next step. And then some of it's going to be a symptom of best available. there were not a ton of offensive linemen available, certainly in the state of Montana, and really in the Northwest. It was kind of a down year, and so we just made a conscious decision to, we were happy that we had focused on those areas in the last 2 recruiting cycles for offensive and defensive line, and turn our attention to getting the best skill players that we could get.
Jeff mentioned Idaho. I'm curious how much of an impact did you see with them out there in the field now?
Yeah, I think it's a similar blueprint. I mean, you look at, okay, traditionally ag school, Montana State, and the University of Idaho, strong engineering programs, good business schools. I think there's some commonalities there, and I think that's a team that we will run into a lot. I really do, and so you know, I mean, it'll be fun. It'll be. I mean, hopefully you guys get the sense. I mean, one of the things I'm looking for as competitors, this is the only way I get to compete anymore. They don't let me play football, so, and thank God they don't. But this is an opportunity for you to kind of get your juices flowing, and you get out there and you get an opportunity to go head to head with somebody, and you get some of it's, there's strategy involved in it. I know you guys think we just sit there and write notes and call people and, you know, feed them steak when they come to Bozeman, but there's, you know, you got to know who are the influencers and how are you going to affect us, and I love this process.
You brought in a big class, 8 or 9 visitors that week at Cat Grizz. What's the strategy with bringing guys in together, and who was the kind of the glue guy of this class?
Yeah, I mean, I think the strategy was that was probably there's going to be great energy in our community and around our campus that weekend, and so that was one of the reasons. We really only had 2 official visit weekends in this second cycle, and that was one of them. We brought in a good group that weekend, and then we just brought in a small group this last weekend, and so. It's interesting. I think everything is different. Like, I think Malik was a real strong guy for us in the Washington area. Those kids. Kobe was Mr. Personality. You know, each guy kind of connects differently. You know, some of the lineman guys, they connect differently, and I don't know. The glue guy to me. I mean, in Montana, our glue guy is B.J. Robertson. Period. Because that guy connects with everybody. You know, I mean. It's amazing, but I do think one guy I thought was one of our best recruiters was Casey Mountain, and he committed to us as quarterback in the first cycle, and that guy was reaching out to every single commit that we had, every single guy that was on a visit, and he's a guy, I think there was 3 guys in that first recruiting cycle that had they not signed early, might have gone somewhere else. I mean, there were people walking into schools up to last week going, what about that guy? Oh, he signed at Montana State. Well, did he commit or did he sign? No, he signed. And so that benefited us this year. I don't think you're going to see the same thing in the future. I think the Power 5s and the FBS programs are going to be, no, don't sign, wait till the next period and let it all play out. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
There was 5 players in this class that did not commit on Twitter publicly. What do you think about those kind of guys' character? Is that something that's important to you? And how do you think of the environment with Twitter and recruiting this day?
Yeah, I think some kids, everybody wants their splash. Everybody deserves their day in the sun, just like we talk about these kids getting their opportunity to take their bow. I don't know. I mean, I think you just got to kind of play each one separately. So, I mean, I don't know that Trayton has Twitter, to be quite honest with you. So we take that one out of the mix. But you know, I think it's just an individual choice. We try to respect that. You know, they're like, are we gonna, you know, do you want me to announce it or do you want to announce it? That's one of the questions that I'll ask. Because we don't want to be presumptuous and steal their thunder if there's something that they had in mind. And, you know, they've got it choreographed a certain way and whatnot. So if they're a good enough player, we'll let them do whatever they want.
And how about a couple of these guys on this list that were getting a lot of FBS offers and heat, and you said there were some late offers. Does your recruiting pitch change for those kind of guys when you know you're up against that kind of competition?
I think the one thing that we always try to do is be honest. And all we ask in return is the same. And so, you know, in Donnie's situation, you know, Donnie, is this a deal breaker? You know, I mean, let's be honest here. There's some bells and whistles that they're going to have that we're not. Are you 100% good with this? Yeah, I am, coach. And that's an interesting kid because that's going to certainly sway one of our recruits this year. That there's some battles that you can fight and some battles you can win. You know, and we got to know which ones we can win. And that's all I want to know going in. The pitch, I mean, I'm just telling you, I'm a straight shooter. You know, I did not try to twist anybody's arm in this process, and I think it works. I think people realize we come off as being genuine, authentic. I think our staff does a tremendous job of that. And that's our style. You know, we're not into gimmicks here. This is who we are. This is what we are. If you're into this, let's go win a championship.
The running back from Washington, do you anticipate him signing this afternoon?
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. Any other questions from the crowd?